Hello folks, welcome back to Peter Goes Rogue, or in this case Peter and his wife go rogue. Now I'm doing a show today, a little bit unusual, which I wouldn't normally sort of touch on this sort of thing, but it's our 15th wedding anniversary this week. And it was when I was talking about it in one of the shows last week, when I talked about the day I drove a Ferrari. And I thought, actually, when I think about our honeymoon, it was quite interesting, I think. It would be quite interesting to other people to see some photographs with an explanation, because it includes quite a lot of interesting stuff. Now, first of all, my good lady Marina, thank you very much for having me for 15 years. Wedded bliss. Yes, bliss. Anyway, but the fact is, neither of us is the type that wants to sit on a beach go to the Maldives for 2 weeks. Oh my God, that is the last thing I would ever dream of, or even somewhere else, like the Caribbean. I'd quite like to go to some of those places, but I'd have to be going somewhere there was lots of things to see, because we're the sort of types that we're not just going to sit there with a book, or it's got to be something interesting and historic places to visit. And we certainly managed to do that with this honeymoon. It's got to be easily the greatest holiday I've ever had, quite apart from the marriage element of it, obviously, as well. But even, I don't think I'm ever going to have either of us is ever going to have a holiday like this again, really. And boy, was it expensive. I'm not going to quote numbers. It was many thousands of pounds. But anyway, that's a given. That's a given. But it occurred to me when I was sort of talking, interestingly, there was recently an episode of Harry's Garage a couple of weeks ago, where he went to Monaco. And this is, of course, where we went. So we basically, I'll show you the photos in a second. I'll just give you a quick synopsis at the beginning. So basically, actually, what you saw us there, that's on Lake Como. So we decided it was a very ambitious plan in terms of a honeymoon, because normally it's just about relaxing and and obviously we'd lived together for a couple of years beforehand, more than a couple. So we decided we wanted something that would be really interesting and exciting and memorable, and it's certainly we ended up going to 4 different locations we stayed at, they being Monte Carlo, and then we went to the Italian lakes, Lake Como, then Lake Garda, and stayed there as well, and then finally Venice. Now, I mentioned Harry's Garage, Harry Metcalf. He went to Monte Carlo a few weeks ago, and he had this show on a couple of weeks ago. And he went to the Historique Formula 1 show weekend, which is basically proper racing, real racing, as Ayrton Senna used to say. Proper motorsport, with real cars, with real engines, not like the rubbish we've got today. More on that later. Anyway, so back to my wife and I. So Marina and I got married the previous Friday, and the week we got married, and then we flew out on Monday, and this is where the adventure starts. So we got married in Gretna Green. Let me go into the photographs, because it'll make much, rather than me just sit here talking. When you can see the pictures, I think it's much more interesting, much more fun. And it will be eye-opening, and I'm sure if any of you enjoy motor racing, if any of you are fans of Star Wars or fans of James Bond, I think you're going to find this quite interesting. It really was a good trip, and it's a great blueprint. Any of you that might be, getting married in the future, or just want to go on a nice holiday in the future, check it out, because you'll see some things here I think might stimulate your imagination. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go right back to the beginning. I've got some alerts going off here. I don't want to know about the blackbirds. I'm not sure where blackbirds at the moment, digging up my lawn. Digging up the lawn they are. Well, they don't, of course they do that, looking for worms. But we've kind of edged the lawn, and they're going round the edge of the lawn, digging out all the earth on an almost 15-minute cycle. And I keep clearing it up, and they dig it out again. There's dirt and mud everywhere, and it's like, sweep it up again. Anyway. Right, let's get to the beginning of the story. So, let me zoom you in, and I'll just take you through this. There's only a couple of pictures from the wedding, so don't worry. It's really about the honeymoon. I think that interests most people. So this is the Gretna Green. We got married in Gretna Green. sad to say that my parents are both gone, and Marina's dad no longer with us, sadly. So at that time she only had a mum left, and we decided not to have one of these big silly weddings because people find it stressful and it's very expensive, and sometimes it's just a big, expensive party, and the only people that really gain from it, I think, are the people who provide the hotel accommodation and what have you. Not a big fan of it, to be honest. So we decided to run away and I obey what my mum told me to do. When I was about, this is true, I'm not making this up. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, my mum had this tea towel. So we lived near Blackpool. And she had this tea towel and it had like famous locations of Britain on it. And on one of the locations it had Gretna Green, and it had this couple and the anvil, which you see here. And she said, that's what you should do when you're older. You should find a nice girl and run away to Gretna Green. Well, I certainly ran away to Gretna Green. No, I found a nice girl as well. Yeah, of course. Listen, I'll get no champagne if I don't watch what I say. Anyway, look at this. Look at this. So this is the actual. It's been here for hundreds of years. The Gretna Green marriage anvil. This is the original marriage anvil, and what they do, they bang it with a smithy's hammer. And what you do, you have to both put your hands on here. You put both hands on, and then you put ring on ring, and then they smash the hammer down to bond the union of your marriage. And I was absolutely terrified. They're going to smash my hand to bits. Anyway, they actually banged it to the side, obviously. But I just want to say one thing about my lovely bride on the day. Yeah, I wasn't very impressed with one thing. Only one thing. She wore enormous high heels and made me look like tiny Tom Cruise. Look at this. I'm taller than her, but look at this. She looks like a giant. In fact, she sort of leans over a little bit to try and make it look less extreme. And I've got these very flat sort of gentleman's leather shoes on, and she's got these high heels on. And yeah, well, I wasn't too happy. When she first appeared, to go to to walk across from the hotel to the blacksmith shop, she was towering over me, and I was joking afterwards, saying, when she turned her back to the window in the hotel room with her wedding dress on, in silhouette, looked like Lord Vader was here. I've got my own back on there. Anyway, she looked very nice, as you can see. Anyway, so that's the famous smithy shop, and we actually signed all the documents in the room next door. Actually had the ceremony in the room next door with witnesses and all that stuff. This is quite a nice photograph taken just outside. Now I'm going to tell you a funny story, which again is absolutely true. And this was weird. One of the weirdest things, the weirdest thing about my wedding day for sure. Two things were really weird. Actually, my wife would say that's not the weirdest thing. So we had separate rooms in the hotel, and then we had one of the marriage suites, the wedding suites. Which was beautiful, huge room, but on the day it was actually so we arrived on the Thursday, and on the Friday was the day we got married. Excuse me. And it kept on raining, a bit like today's weather actually. It kept raining and sun, and then rain and then sun. Now I had this white, can you see it in a minute? I had my white Seat Leon Cupra, which was beautiful, ice white, well, candy white I think it was actually. And it kept getting covered in rain, and it wasn't the rain that was the problem, it was the fact that all the crud in the car park kept bouncing up and covering it with all this garbage and filth off the floor. And I kept running, so we didn't get married till 4 p.m. So I had to keep running out and washing the car off and going to the reception asking them to fill me these big buckets of water that I'd take with me just in case. This is how OCD I am. This is not a joke, okay? On my wedding day, I washed my car 4 times. Now, luckily, the actual wedding ceremony wasn't until 4 p.m. Good job, and it just kept on raining. And then it was like really heavy rain, and then nothing for an hour, and then really heavy rain, and nothing for an hour, and so it went on. So I ended up washing the car 4 times, which is frustrating because it was already clean. It was immaculate when I got there. Anyway, wind forward to the moment when Marina had been in one of these beauty spa things, whereas I'd been washing the car all day or watching the Formula 1 in Barcelona. In fact, the practice was on that day. And then we then met up and walked across the road to the blacksmith shop. And it's only, 50, 80 metres, something like that. And this is quite a normal procedure in Gretna Green. So we then get there, and the door is locked, because I think they lock it after 3 o'clock. It's like a museum, you see. And you have to knock on the door after 3 p.m. I'm knocking on the door. Just as this happens, a coach arrives right behind us, because it's in this like I'll actually show you the website in a second. It's in like a quadrant, and it also has this like a souvenir shop. It's a bit tacky, and there's also like a big restaurant there, which is very popular with foreign tourists, and it's a stop for a lot of coach tours. So this coach pulls up, and it's full of Japanese, mainly women. Not old, I'd say average age between about 25 and 45, you know. And I'm not making this up. This just baffled me, and it was terrifying. They all piled out of the coach, pointed at me, and one of them screamed, "It's David Beckham! It's Beckham! Beckham! Beckham!" And she's shouting, "David Beckham! David Beckham is here!" And for reasons not entirely clear, they all got it in their heads that I was David Beckham. Now, I was a bit slimmer then, as you can probably tell, but I still don't get where they think I'm David Beckham. You know, I think they see a guy with a crew cut haircut, and that's it, you're David Beckham. And by this time they were all coming up behind me and demanding autographs. I'm not making this up. And my bride to be was like, "Oh, what the hell is happening? What?" And he's just being swamped by these Japanese tourists. I'm not making it up. I mean, I just don't look like Beckham anyway. So I'm pounding on the door saying, "For the love of God, let us in!" And the guy opened the door said, "Oh, what's going on?" I said, "They think I'm David Beckham." And he sort of went, "Huh?" Same as me. I'm not known for my football prowess, I never was. But anyway, there we go. And they let us in and then shut the door to these very disappointed ladies from Japan outside that were mortified, you know, that and I said, "Why do you think I'm back? Does my wife look like Posh Spice? Do they think that we do this?" And he said, "Oh, sometimes they seem to get it in their heads that these things are put on for the tourists." And I said, "Yeah, but Beckham's married anyway. What? None of it made any sense." Anyway, then we had our wedding, and as you can see, this was the result. So I'm going to zoom in, and then I'll get to the really interesting part of the story when we get travelling. So here we go. So this is one of the nicer photographs. My wife's still looking a little bit taller than me, but I think I may have been stood on a slight on a step there to try and reduce the impact, because normally I stand just a whisker taller than her. So yeah, anyway, we look good. We look good, I think. It's okay. It's okay. Now, next one. Here is the car that I just mentioned. So here's my Seat Leon Cupra, which I spent the whole day washing. And I was thinking, so this is taken at about 5 p.m. now. And I was thinking, so we are now married, obviously. And I was thinking, my God, thank God it's not raining. The sun came out. You can tell by the shadows, can't you? And then the photographer did this. The photographer, I won't name him, but I wasn't all that impressed by him. Some of what he did was good, some of it was a bit poor actually. But this was quite good, where he did this black and white like a vignette. So you got Marina's flowers are all in colour, and everything else is kind of black and white. But you can see in the sky, even though we've got shadows, you can still see the sky's a bit dark and a bit gloomy. But this is the 4 times cleaned car with our special number plate on it. Anyway, there we go. So that was the wedding, and then we made our way home on the Saturday, ready for Monday. And another funny story on Monday. So on Monday we have to go to Manchester Airport, fly out to Nice in the south of France. We're flying with Sabina, which was the Brussels airline, Belgian airline, and there was a bit of an issue. Sorry. It wasn't Sabina, was it? The first flight to Brussels, and then obviously we're like the connecting flight, so we fly to Brussels and then fly Brussels to Nice. But the first flight was the problem. It was late. It was running late, and I think it was British. Was it British Midland? I can't remember. Or Flybe, but anyway, it was a Hawker Siddeley 146, one of these 4-engined, like a regional city jet type thing. Nothing wrong with the plane, but there'd been some delay apparently earlier in the day, and this put us on a very tight schedule indeed, because we were supposed to have an hour between flights for connection, and this hour, I think it was an hour and a quarter in fact, and this hour and a quarter went from an hour and a quarter to a quarter. So we arrives, and we have got 15 minutes to get from our flight to the next flight. And unfortunately, any of you that know Brussels Airport, it's like an enormous U shape. And we were literally at the opposite ends of the U. So we were almost at the top right of the U, and we had to go down all the way around and go back through security for the actual for the Sabina flight. Was it Sabina or Air France? No, it was Sabina, Brussels Airlines. And we had to go through security, so we had to run. Oh my God, stress isn't the word. So I've been to Brussels Airport many times. In fact, it's probably one of the airports I've visited the most, apart from Manchester. And I had to learn how to sprint. Yeah, so we both did. We sprinted with all our luggage. It was a nightmare. All because they'd got their timings out, you know, and it happens, doesn't it? Anyway, we managed to get there, and we arrived. We went through the security saying, "Come on, quick, we've got to get there. We've got to go. Yeah, monsieur, you just calm down. Hey, the security. Hey, 9/11. Oh. And it's like, okay, we get on with it, you know." Anyway, we had to sprint, so we sprinted down one side, and then we had to sprint up the other. And it was, I think it was second from the end. Oh my God, you couldn't have made it worse. And we got there, and they were just about to shut the door. They said, "Oh, you is Oxley, you were late. Not our fault. Our flight was... Okay, monsieur, just get on the plane." You know, like, "Whoa, okay." And then we got on the plane, and that's the moment that we calmed down, and it was fine then. And then we had a nice flight in the sunshine over the Alps and down to Nice. So, next photo. So we now arrive at Nice, and we end up having to transfer then. This is where it starts to get very interesting and quite special. So, just to remind you, did I ever tell you about the day that I flew on a helicopter? Yes, look at this. This is us flying on the Air Monaco helicopter. It was a Eurocopter, I think it was. And here we are. So we have to fly from Nice on the chopper, and this is going to take us and touch down at the helipad in Monaco itself. Instead of getting the train or a taxi or whatever, we're going to go by chopper. Now, I've got to be honest with you. You know about my flying exploits and Ferrari exploits. Choppers I'm not a big fan of. I'm not afraid of flying, obviously. Choppers, though, I have a bit of a slight phobia about them. They're just not very safe. They are the least safe way to fly. Let's be honest. Chopper, they don't glide well. They don't glide well. So, and they're always rattling. It doesn't matter how new it is. You know, I've been on 2 or 3 now, and they're always lots of vibration, and you know, you always feel you're defying Sir Isaac Newton, and one moment he might take his revenge on you. Anyway, we flew across Cap Ferrat and across the peninsula there, and we arrived in Monte Carlo, and here we go, touching down in Monaco. Here we are, and this is on the helipad, Air Monaco. That's the actual helicopter that we flew in on. Now, it's interesting, if you look in the background over Marina's shoulder, I don't think you can make it out, I think he's just unloading the bags. Now, we had a bit of an issue. Here's another story. A bit of an issue here. This is where things take a bit of an annoying turn, to be honest. They lost my bag, my big bag. And he said, "Oh, monsieur, there's a problem. We have lost your bag." "Cannot find it, monsieur." "Are you sure that you checked it?" "Yes, of course I did. Here's the ticket." "Okay." I said, "I watched you put it on the chopper. It's right there." He put it toward the back of the stowage area. "No, monsieur, there is no bag for you. It must be back at the airport." I said, "I watched him put it on. I literally stood no more than 55 metres away watching him load my bag into the... My bag had got these flashes on it, so it was obvious that it was mine. "No, monsieur." "Oh, okay, right, you know." So, "Well, look, I'm not happy about this." Yeah. "So where are you staying?" So we stayed, more on this in a moment, but we stayed at the Fairmont Hotel. This is the hotel that's on the Grand Prix hairpin in Monte Carlo. It used to be called Lowe's Hotel in the old days. And it's where the station, or the station hotel it was originally. The gasworks, sorry, not the gasworks, the station hotel, the station hairpin. Because that's where the terminus of the actual railway station used to be in the sort of 1940s, 50s, you know. And they knocked it down and they moved the station and built this big complex. We'll talk about that more later. Anyway, long story short, we then get this... it's all included. You got a taxi ride into Monaco with their official taxi, and this is the week of the Grand Prix. So this is 4 days before the Grand Prix is due to start, and it's already geared up for the Grand Prix. Everything's in place, all the grandstands, the lot, you know. So it's almost like being in the middle of the Formula 1 Grand Prix. So we go up the hill on the Grand Prix circuit, along the start-finish line, up the hill, past the Hotel de Paris, past the casino, more on that in a minute, and then down to the Fairmont. When we get there, and again, I'm not making this up, I've just realised there's quite a few things in this story that are incredible, really, and actually some I could have done with avoiding. But anyway, we get there, check in, and I have booked one of the premium rooms in the hotel. Now, I'm not sure exactly which one it will be, but I do know it will be directly overlooking the hairpin, so it's one of the premium top rooms in the hotel. I think they have some suites up at the top, but that we could not afford, I'm afraid. But yeah, I mean, this is 4 nights. Yeah, 4 nights. Thousands it was. I think it was like €3,000, €3,500, you know. Anyway, and then when I get to the reception, he said, "Oh no, monsieur, no, you're not on the hairpin, monsieur. No. This is for like VIPs only." And I said, "Lord Oxley, it says it on my passport. Hello." But he said, no. And he said, no, I'll show you the room. We have this beautiful suite for you and your good lady wife, your new bride. We have this wonderful suite. And he took us up to this suite, which was absolutely lovely and huge. But it was at the back of the hotel, and it looks out onto the quadrant. Again, I'll show you in a minute. It looked out onto this quadrant, the gardens. No view of the Grand Prix, nothing to do with the Formula 1 at all. And completely contrary to what we planned. Okay, so I went absolutely ballistic, and this went on. I ended up having a big argument with him, and it went on. He wouldn't accept it until I produced. See, the problem is, I got the documents, but they're in the bag that was missing, so I couldn't produce the documents straight away. Anyway, I did it electronically. I think I got an email from my phone, and I got him to print it off, and I had it in black and white that I had booked. Grand Prix hairpin view room, premium room, blah 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 blah. It was all in black and white, and he was just talking through his backside. I know what they were doing. We saw when we were there there was a lot of Russians there. This is before all the trouble with Ukraine, obviously, but there was a lot of Russians there, and there was a lot of millionaires there, oligarchs and what have you, with yachts and all sorts, and they were trying to just push us to the back so that someone could have that room probably for the entire duration. Now, we weren't staying for the whole Grand Prix. We were only going to stay until Friday. Now then, they've changed it now, but at Monaco, until recently, the first day of the event is actually on the Thursday practice session 1 and 2, and the qualifying for the GP2, whatever they call it, Formula 2, all that stuff. And then they have races for Formula 2 on Friday, and then they have, on Friday, beg pardon. Friday they have nothing. Friday it all goes back to normal. They open the roads because they have to close the roads in this place, don't forget. So it stops everything. So this is why they used to do it this way. They used to have one day and then open the roads on Friday, let everybody go to the market, let everybody go shopping, get everything they needed for the weekend, and then they shut it again on Friday evening. And then that's it. You can't take a car anywhere. You can't go out apart from in certain restricted zones. It's Grand Prix conditions. It's almost like lockdown, you know. But we were leaving on Friday morning. I planned it that way because it was a lot cheaper. If I'd have gone for this 4 days across the Grand Prix weekend, you can kiss goodbye to £5,000. Oh, no problem at all. So anyway, we didn't do that. We wanted to get away from the noise because I'll tell you in a minute when we get into the details. You don't want to be sitting in that hotel room that we had over the whole Grand Prix weekend. You definitely need headphones, you know. Anyway, long story short, I went crazy, and I said, I will speak to the president of Fairmont Hotels in America. I've got to. I'll email him, I'll call him on the phone. You can clearly see I am right. I am being completely truthful. I have a contract with you that says I want a room. You have agreed to it. You've taken the booking. You've taken my deposit. And on that basis, we have a contract. And that's true under French law, just the same as under British law and Monaco law. Do you want me to contact Prince Albert? You know, I was getting a bit perhaps beyond my remit there, but once he realised that I absolutely wasn't going to budge, I said to him, I said, "You are ruining my honeymoon. This is outrageous. It's black and white. I booked it, I paid for it, that's an end to it. So of course we got the room we wanted. So I'll show you the room in a minute. We actually ended up at the end, but we did end up with a great room that gave us all the atmosphere we'd anticipated. But it was just a bit of a battle, and then we got the phone call. Then he said, "Oh, we will give you." I said, "I'm really upset about this." And he said, "No, monsieur." This other manager came in and then sort of took over, much more diplomatic. I don't know what the first guy was on. It was just ridiculous. He was just being stupid. And the other guy was like, "Oh, Monsieur Oxley. Oh, my Lord, I'm sorry about this. I will give you a free bottle of champagne." Now, if you know what champagne costs in Monaco, that's quite a good gift, actually. I'll come to that later as well. Anyway, and then that didn't turn up for like 90 minutes. When we thought they put us in the room, we were happy with the room. Yes, that's okay. And then the champagne never rocked up, and I ended up getting a bit cross about that with them as well. So in the end, I had to really push them for it. But anyway, all got settled in the end. And I bumped into, there's a few people we saw. Andre Agassi was in the hotel with Steffi Graf, and Ray Wilkins, the football manager. He was in the lift with us, because I looked at him and I thought, it's Ron Dennis. And then I realised, because he looks like Ron Dennis, I thought, no, it's not, it's Ray Wilkins. It's Ray Wilkins. So yeah, there's quite a few famous people around. Also in the evening we went out, I'll show you the pictures. I'll get back to the pictures, don't worry, and I'll walk you through it. You'll get a feel for it. So obviously, zooming back, let's get back to the pictures in that. So yeah, so this was, little did I know, are all smiles, and then 5 minutes later we're getting very cross, both with the helicopter company and the hotel, who both screwed up royally. I was baffled, really. A bit of French incompetence there, I think. Anyway, this is the room. So this is my good lady wife. The champagne has finally arrived. You can see behind here, this is the hairpin, which we'll go into in more details. Just behind her head, that's the other side of the Fairmont. And this is the Sun Casino here, just on this side. Not to be confused with the main casino. And here we go. So just zoom in slightly. So this is our room here, right at the end. So this stuck us on the end. But it was okay. No complaints. Honestly, it was fine. And one thing I must say, if you and I'll show you some photos of what it looks like today. They've changed it. It's had this like greenery there for years, and they've cut it all down now. It's a bit of a shame. Now look in the background of this shot, because we'll talk about it very shortly. There've been some major changes at Monte Carlo. Look at the view there. You've got the bay. It's really nice. And just to the left, I don't know if you can make it out. Just here. That's the Grimaldi Forum, which is the big conference centre, named after the Grimaldi family, obviously, the Prince Rainier and Prince Albert's family, the real Monaco. And that's why they have all the conventions and all they have the auctions there. They have the big Grand Prix events like functions and big meals and balls and all sorts of fancy events take place there. And this is the entrance to the Fairmont. Then they've got a grandstand on the top. Just behind this grandstand is the swimming pool. Not to be confused with the main Monaco pool, but they've got their own swimming pool on the roof, which is very nice. Here you go. This is the actual hairpin itself. This is the entrance to the Fairmont. And this is one of probably the most famous corner in the world. Yeah. And you'll see me standing on it in a second with this very jacket on. I think it is this jacket. I think I just bought it then, it was new. There it is. That's where they all come round during the Grand Prix. They can't exceed 30 miles an hour because it's obviously it's a 180-degree corner. This, would you believe, is Flavio Briatore. Yes, the guy that was found guilty of the Formula 1 equivalent of match fixing when he did a race fix for Fernando Alonso at the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix. Getting one of his drivers to crash to help Alonso's strategy, and he won the race. And that's the Lady Mora, I think it's called. Is it the Lady Mora? Oh, it is. Can't see it very well. You can't see the name. It's the Lady Mora, and that's his yacht, or it was at the time, anyway. And it has these boats coming out of the side. I don't know if I can show you this. Can you see that? That is the sort of little speedboats pop out of the side. It's like a starship, with a shuttle. Amazing. I mean, these people, this is worth, oh God, 300 million, something like that. A lot of money, a lot of money. And that's the view we had at the back. Here, this is looking now to the left. You saw the picture of my wife. Oh, this is what was behind her. This is the Sun Casino. And you got the steps here from the the top of the Sun Casino. I mean, beautiful, very famous. There's lots of famous photographs from the Grand Prix over the years with this in the background. And here we have really the very heart of the Monaco Grand Prix, you could say. And there's yours truly. Don't I look young? Oh my God. I look disproportionately young there. I think I'm pretty exhausted though, because I've had this day of stress with A, the problems with the connecting flight, B, losing my luggage, and then C, trying to diddle me out of the hotel room. And I was actually, no way was I going to budge on that. It's amazing how people try things on with you though in life. I'll just give you a bit of advice here. Never let people throw you off with a load of BS, yeah? I was right. Why would I have let them? Why would you let them ruin your honeymoon? Because that would have ruined it for me. I would always look back with bitterness if I'd have agreed to that other room, even though it was a very nice room. It's not what we wanted. And whilst my wife was like, "Oh well, you're getting very upset about this too right," you know. Okay, absolutely furious. I was ready to punch him. I was getting really cross, really angry, and I wasn't being treated correctly at all until the end, until the other guy came in and sorted it out. And I sat looking at him and saying, "Monsieur, what part of I have booked this don't you understand? What part of I've paid for it don't you understand?" "No, monsieur, because you were only here for 4 days." I said, "I don't care. I have the booking. It was available and I booked it. Here's the paperwork to prove it." So, you know, don't want to go the wrong ground. But anyway, by this time I'm now winding down, starting to relax. I've had a glass of champagne. I look a bit tiddly, don't I, actually? And it wasn't Tattinger though, so again I was disappointed by them. Really? Yeah. Now here we go. This is outside of the. This is the plaque at the front of the Fairmont. A plaque of inauguration, 25th of May 2007, for Prince Albert, who is the King of Monaco, obviously. Prince Albert, sorry. And presented by the Institute of Art and Senna, Vivienne Senna. I've met Vivienne Senna at Alton Park. I spoke to her actually. Oh, that would be. She was with Bruno, her son. That would be about, I don't know, 2009, something like that. An occasion, a manifestation. Monaco Senna celebration, 87 to 2007. 87 was when he first won the Monaco Grand Prix, of course. There you go. He won the Monaco Grand Prix. 87, 89. 1990, 1991, 1992, I mean, that is incredible. Especially any of you that doubt that Senna was the greatest driver of all time. If you do, you're wrong. We'll get into that in another show. But the fact is, you know, I mean, 93, his last victory at Monaco, he had a car that had no business winning that race. No business at all. It was about 140 horsepower down on the Williams Renault. But anyway. Amazing, truly amazing, and you felt the history there. It was absolutely incredible. Now, there was a shot I wanted to show you, but I'll come back to this in a second. A shot that I wanted to show you, where there was somebody else famous that I met. We saw Paul di Resta, by the way, the driver for Force India. We came face to face with him outside the casino. But much more famous Scotsman that we met was, we went to the Tip Top Bar. Now this is near, beyond the casino. The cars and the race, some of you will know this well, I'm sure. You come out of the casino square and you drop down the hill, and then the Tip Top Bar is on your left just before you get to the Mirabeau. Now I'm just going to check something while we're talking, because Jackie Stewart was coming out. I meant to check this first and I've forgotten. I tell you what I'll do, I'm going to go to Google Earth and this will just tell me the answer straight away. But there is a very nice restaurant that Jackie Stewart was going to, and we were going to the one next door on our first night, this was. Bear with me 1 second. And I met Jackie Stewart walking down the hill from the casino on his own, just walking on his own, with his cap on, as you always expect to see him, you know. And he was walking along, and I said to my wife, "That's Jackie Stewart." And we were sitting outside the Tip Top. I'm just going to find it for you. Here we go. Here we are. It's here. 1 second. I'll show it you on my phone. Right. Bum, bum, bum. Just go. Oh. Technology, always guaranteed to let you down, isn't it, to be honest? Right, here we go. So we're at the Tip Top bar, which if I can, that's the Tip Top, isn't it? Is it? Let me show you this. It is the Tip Top. So this is the Tip Top bar, which is very famous. Now this was the favourite bar of Graham Hill and his wife Betty. He used to go there because he won the Monaco Grand Prix. Before Senna, he was the champion. I think he won it 5 times. I think I'm right in saying that. And he allegedly used to go in there, and Murray Walker used to talk about this all the time, and he used to go in and he used to whip off his own trousers and dance around on top of the tables drinking champagne in his underpants. I kid you not. I kid you not. Anyway, this is the entrance to the Tip Top bar, and this is on the way down to Marylebone. It's quite small. It's not huge, and you can see here it's got some really. This is the entrance here. This is the frontage. So it's just like a little pizza bar, really, and you've got all this historic, lots of historic photographs. There's the. I don't know if you can make it out actually. There. Tip Top. Sorry, by the way, you're probably wondering why I'm wearing the gloves tonight. It's because I'm in the middle. Just so you don't think I've gone a bit mad. I am in the middle of filming quite a few other things, so like this. So yeah, that's why I've got the gloves on. I can't bother taking them on and off. It cost me too much in gloves, but look at this. So this is the bar where Graham Hill used to whip his trousers off and dance around his underpants after winning the Monaco Grand Prix. With all his mates, you know, you'd have Jim Clark there. It just oozes atmosphere if you're into Formula 1. Anyway, if I just step out of the Tip Top bar for a second and walk back to the right, he says, this is proving to be a little bit more challenging than I'd expected. Basically, there's a second restaurant which I'm determined to get to. I'm going to move up from the Tip Top bar to here. There is a much more expensive restaurant that Jackie Stewart could afford and I couldn't. I'm going to show it to you. I'm sure it begins with a B. Whoops. That's not... Yeah, that's the Tip Top... Okay, so here's... Hang on a minute, just bear with me. This is the Tip Top bar inside, which is this very famous, very, very renowned, notorious, you could say. This is the interior of the Tip Top bar as you walk in. And then we ended up... I think we had a pizza, which is not really my thing normally. It's not very big, this place. It's a tiny, really. Only tiny. But it's very, very famous. And as I say, a lot of famous people have eaten there and celebrated their Grand Prix victories there. Now here, if I can just find it, there's a much bigger... I'm floundering here because I'm having a bit of trouble with the technology. There's a really posh, proper, expensive Monaco restaurant right next door, which is the one that Jackie Stewart was going to. So anyway, as I'm fighting to get this to show me, is it Rampoldi? Is it called? That's the Tip Top. It's beyond the Tip Top. I've got it. Yeah, it's Rampoldi. I thought it was Rampoldi. I'll show it you. I'll just zoom back. So this puts it in perspective, the difference in Jackie Stewart and Lord Oxley. Ooh. One's a multi-millionaire, the other one just pretends he is. Look on the right, the little one with the red sign. That's the Tip Top bar, tiny. This huge one here, this is the Rampoldi, and this is where Jackie Stewart was going, wandering into there. In fact, I thought I saw Max Mosley there actually. At the time, I think he was actually having a meeting with Max Mosley. Anyway, he walked up and I said, "Oh, Sir Jackie," and he said, "Oh, good evening. How are you?" And he was really friendly, you know. He's like, not like, "Oh no, some stupid fan," you know. And I said, "What?" I said, "What an unexpected honour to bump into you, just on the street of Monaco," you know. And he said, "Well, I live here part of the time, you know, because that was before his wife was really badly ill. She had dementia, didn't she? She's still alive. She's still alive, isn't she? It's been a a real terrible thing for him. And he's such a nice guy, Jackie Stewart. He was so friendly. He said, "Oh well," he said, "Are you in the Tip Top? You know, that's where Graham used to like to go. Graham Hill." I said, "Yeah, that's where I've come." And he said, "Oh, you'll have a great night." And I looked at the Ramboldi and I said, "Yeah, I don't think they'll let me in there. Unfortunately, I think that's a bit out of my league." And he just said, "Oh, it's only a number." He said. He walked in, you know, it's funny. And he was so friendly and just jovial, you know. Really nice chap. Anyway, I'm sort of digressing. Let's get back to the story. So, now, this is the Fairmont, our hotel. And I mentioned that Harry Metcalf in Harry's Garage a couple of weeks ago, he actually had one of the suites, I think. Now, that if you can just about make out, I'll zoom in a bit more. Here, that's where that foliage is, just here. That's our room there, looking that way. And I think that Harry Metcalf had one of these, I'm pretty sure from the photographs he took, that he had one of these rooms up here. I think it might be a suite, so that was probably quite pricey. So this is above the tunnel entrance. Now, this is where it gets interesting. A couple of things to tell you about. First of all, just on the left, actually just slightly off this photo, let's try and get in a bit closer. You don't need to see me, let's zoom in back in. So just off the left, just at the left of this image, is where Ayrton Senna famously crashed in 1988, sorry, when he was, you know, 2 seconds a lap quicker than Prost and basically on another planet, frankly. And there was a danger he might even lap Prost in that race, the way things were going, in the same car, and he was just on fire. And then he made this mistake where they said, you're so far ahead, you're 40 seconds ahead, slow down. And it threw his concentration. He went off into the barrier just on the left there. So this is the entrance to the tunnel. Now, this is going to get very interesting. Any of you that follow motor racing and like the Monaco Grand Prix are going to find this quite interesting because, as I say, Harry took some shots, and I've got some footage here. This is what it looks like today. Now, I think they've utterly ruined Monte Carlo. This is the same place today. So here is the spot. The barrier is now gone and become like a clear glass. Although there will be barriers for the Grand Prix, of course. So there will be barriers here where those block sides are. The barriers will be. But look very carefully. I'll just zoom you in here. So here we go. This is exactly the same spot. Entrance to the tunnel. Yeah, you can see there. This is literally my honeymoon suite here. This one, which has now no longer got the greenery. But they've gone and built out, and this is absolutely horrendous what they've done. Absolutely horrendous. Now, when you see it from this angle, you think, oh yeah, but when I show you what it did look like before and what it looks like today, you're going to be quite shocked, I think. So this is what it looked like in 2011 when we were on our honeymoon. So this is the entrance to the tunnel. Okay, so I'm zooming you in, literally zooming you now to the very spot Ayrton Senna crashed. Ayrton Senna crashed here. Just there, X in the corner. He lost it and went into the barrier there. Understeered straight into the barrier. Now, here on the left, it's a bank cash machine. And then there's got this quite attractive sort of like oval-shaped building. And this in the background, you can see this is the bay. This is the Monaco Bay. Here is the Grimaldi Forum, this building here. Sorry, just bring it down for you. There you go. There's the Forum, which is this quite futuristic-looking building. And as I say, you've then got the bay, and here's another shot of it in the evening. This is when you can see that you sod off, honestly. Yeah, there's a transporter there, a Renault transporter that's just going. Now that's what it looked like in 2011. Okay, and you used to see people fishing here on the bay off the rocks and all this kind of thing. Now it looks like this. So this building I mentioned, that's got the rounded oval-shaped building has gone completely, been replaced by this horrible square mess. Here they've built this I think it's a restaurant in fact, and then this is what it looks like from Google Earth. So everything you see here, whoops, sorry, bear with me, we've lost it. Everything you see here has just been built recently. So here, I'm going to show you this line here. That is the old shoreline where the rocks were. and they've built this monstrosity. I complain about developers, but this is taking it to another level. And the building and putting into shadow the Fairmont almost. In fact, I believe they wanted to build right out to here, and the Fairmont strongly objected and said no, because our customers want us to have the sea view. So they only let them build a swimming pool here. Now, you may or may not know that in this building lives a couple of Grand Prix drivers, including Max Verstappen. I'm pretty sure he'll be on the seaward side of it. You better hope that they don't do it again. It's absolutely, talk about overdevelopment. Now, I know Monaco is tiny and tight, but they have ruined the character, I think, of this. And when you see it from different angles, here's another angle. Check this out. It's astonishing what they've done. This is just concreting over the world. If ever I saw it, it's heartbreaking, to be honest. Look at it. I mean, it's not even attractive, the building, is it? So here's our hotel. This here, if you look very carefully, this is the quadrant that I spoke of, where they tried to give me a room, and the room was facing this way. So it was sort of over the back here, facing into the gardens. That's the room they tried to give me, instead of giving me this room down here. And here you can see the whole of the harbour. Zoom back again. See the whole of the harbour there, with the sailing boat in the background. But look at the way. I mean, imagine if you live in one of these apartments here and you just had your view of the sea has just been completely blotted out by a building. That's not fair, is it? I'm sorry, but it's disgusting. And it's not even attractive. They haven't even done it well. It's just ridiculous. I think it's shocking. I'm really stunned by that. Anyway, that's me ranting about developers yet again. That's what I do on this show. This channel. But isn't that ugly? It's foul. You know, it's really bad. And when I watched that historical Monaco racing the other week, I said to my wife, I said, look at this. And it was awful. We on the evening of the second day, I think it was, we were, late afternoon, we were tugged up in our swimming gear. We went to the swimming pool on the top. And we were looking out, and it was just the most wonderful atmosphere with the seagulls whirling around. Loads of these sailing ships and yachts, multi-million-pound yachts, and some beautiful sailing ships. There was a French one out in the bay. And now that's all gone and replaced by this concrete jungle. It's just shocking. Anyway, sorry. That is really a real shocker. And you'll see it in the Grand Prix. You'll see just how ugly it looks. Now this is the casino itself. Story here. We said, oh no, let's tell you what, let's wait. We'll go in the casino. Now remember, this is where we get into the film tie-ins now. We're talking about motor racing. Now it's time to talk about films. James Bond. Goldeneye. Filmed in the casino here at Monte Carlo. So we decided that we'd wait till our last night, Thursday night. We'll go in the casino then. And we'd have a go on the roulette wheels, and I'd go all in and you know, bet my Porsche. Well, I didn't have a Porsche then. Bet the house keys, yeah. Oh, it came up black. Oh, shortest wedding in history, yeah. Divorce. Anyway, we decided to go on the Thursday. What happened when we finally got there on the Thursday? All the croupiers were on strike. Oh, it's part of France, isn't it? Well, almost. What a surprise, yeah. And there was nothing happening. So we were allowed to walk around. Walked right in the casino, all around it, looking at all the crap tables and the baccarat and poker tables and everything, and roulette. But nothing happening. People just sitting, talking, having a glass of wine. That was it. I quite enjoyed it though, because you didn't feel pressurised to do something reckless. I was really worried about that. Honestly, I was really worried. I thought, don't get bounced into, oh, monsieur, you lost this time, but put a bit more down in maybe you will win this time. Maybe you will own one of those yachts tomorrow, because that's what they say to people, isn't it? Maybe you'll be in prison tomorrow is what they really mean, in some dingy jail in Nice. Oh, the bankrupt's jail. Anyway. Zooming you in. Check it out. So this is the casino itself. Outside of here, what happens is you have these parking attendants, the valet guys, and people will pull up and they'll take your keys and they'll park it there. Especially if you've got something nice, if you've got like a Porsche. Although I've got to be honest, I think mine's borderline whether they think it was a cheap one. Because it's not the latest ultra reckless car, you know what I mean? It's not $1 million. I think you've got to have one that's worth a couple of $100,000 for them to park it in front of the casino. Because people jump out and take pictures of their car parked in front of the casino. You'd only get that once, wouldn't you? But actually what they do, they leave it there for 10 minutes and then they come back out and they move the car and put it in an underground car park. And it doesn't matter what car you've got, even the most impressive ones, unless it's, well, there were one or two where I think they left it there for half an hour. But most of the cars, even, you know, Ferraris, 10 minutes and then they move it, disappears into the underground car park. It's all like for show, isn't it? It's incredible. Anyway, zooming back in. So we found this quite fascinating, and people watching was quite interesting as well. Now, I'll tell you a story in a minute when we get to the picture of me, Mr. and Mrs. O. This is the tunnel now. So this is in the tunnel itself, where the Grand Prix is going to take place. You can see it's got the Armco barrier rails up, so you can tell it's Grand Prix time. Lots of things have occurred in this tunnel, accidents and incidents. Montoya crashed in the tunnel, Schumacher crashed in the tunnel, the Tyrrell driver, and what was his name? The guy that drove for Tyrrell, the Italian who drove for Tyrrell in 1991. Stefano Modena, I remembered. Stefano Modena's Tyrrell had its Honda V10 properly explode, in an almighty explosion in the tunnel, and just belched oil all over the tunnel, causing several cars to crash, including, who was the one that crashed? Was it Mansell? Somebody hit the oil anyway and had a big accident coming out of the tunnel. I forget now. Memory's gone, but that was a big incident. Lots of things happened there. It's because the trouble is it's quite well lit, but it's not well lit enough, is it, when you're motor racing at 180 mile an hour? And they probably hit on about 160, 170 in this tunnel. Easy. Now this is the photo I was alluding to with the wife and myself. So this is at the Café de Paris. Now this is, if you don't know, as you come up the hill in the race, of course, you can see the cars, and they come into Casino Square. And as they turn left, you've got the big Hotel de Paris. More on this in a moment, to do with bar prices and David Coulthard. Hotel de Paris is on your left, the casino's on your right, and then on the opposite to the Hotel de Paris is the Café de Paris. This is at the Café de Paris. And we saw some interesting sights. And there's this ongoing joke we had about Russians with their nieces. These very clearly rich, multimillionaire people. With bodyguards and young women, very young women with them. And with the bodyguards, I was sitting looking at two guys, a white guy and a black guy, both security bodyguards, you know. And the black guy, and I realised, I'm looking at his, admiring his, he had like an Armani suit on, and he had jewellery and everything, he had Rolex. This is the bodyguard, not the millionaire. And then I looked and I noticed, looking at his suit, and I could see he had a Glock pistol in a holster, in his shoulder holster, which I was a bit horrified by, and I was thinking, are they allowed to carry firearms? Really? So I didn't try and strike up a conversation with him, I'll tell you, but my God. So they're obviously allowed to carry weapons, you know. And this was common. We saw lots of people like that where they had these, security teams and these multi-billionaires coming off yachts and stuff. And they were sitting right opposite us, same place as this, just opposite Marina. And this guy said he had a pistol, automatic pistol in the shoulder holster. Yeah, a bit scary. Anyway, we did find the drinks quite expensive. We enjoyed their cocktails. They had a small cocktail they did, and it was only €25 each. But I'll get into more of that later. About if you think that's expensive, wait till we tell you about the Hotel de Paris opposite. We walked in on the second or third night, and we walked in there, the Hotel de Paris. Got a picture of it? No, we'll come to that in a second. And they were really busy. And the maitre d' guy said, "Oh, monsieur, please just sit down. We'll just be a short delay. We are very busy. Please have a seat. We'll come to you." And thank God, because we opened up the drinks menu and it was catastrophic. The highest drinks prices I've seen anywhere in the world. Yes. And I'll tell you more later as we get toward the end, because I've actually got a chart showing what they were charging. I made it when we came back after the honeymoon. A month later, we had our like a wedding party at home, inviting friends and family. And I wrote it all on the chart from the little menu they'd given us, and it was just unbelievable. So I'll let you see that at the end. The other thing that's notable about the Hotel de Paris is I lost my camera case. I dropped it outside that hotel and never got it back. Despite I kept going in and looking for it, and they were almost like, "Monsieur, Monsieur common scum like you do not belong here, eh? You may be a lord in England, here you're nothing! Out! Away, away! Oh, he calls the security. Anyway, moving on. So, and now this is the day before the Grand Prix starts. This is on the Wednesday, so all the Formula 1 teams are getting ready in the pit lane. And here we have the McLaren pit, and it's the noses for Jenson Button and for Lewis Hamilton. And here we've got Jenson Button's car being worked on. Quite impressive, isn't it? Just bring it in a bit for you. Look at the brakes. It's quite something, isn't it? This is this very shiny car. It wasn't actually McLaren's greatest car. It was not one of the most successful ones. That said, it is the car that only a couple of weeks later Jenson Button won the Canadian Grand Prix, the longest Grand Prix of all time, in the rain, and he won it in that very car. So, not too bad. Not too shabby. Here's a shot of me in the tunnel. This is just at the entrance of the tunnel. Pretty much where that earlier photograph was taken, actually. Looking in the opposite direction. Here I am in front of... Whoops. Here I am in front of Jenson Button's pit. Really soaking up the atmosphere. And here we've got a shot which is actually taken from the top of our hotel. No, sorry, our light. It's actually taken on the way down... up down the hill, in fact, because we went and had some. Oh, my brain's gone again. We were going to have some breakfast, and we decided to have Bucks Fizz instead. Going to have cocktails. I think we had like a bread roll and Bucks Fizz. Strange choice, but it gives you an idea what the harbour's like. So you can see here we've got a cruise liner has arrived here. And that's again around the Grand Prix time. That's quite common for them to stop there. Now this is the Hotel de Paris. So this is where I've just been talking about with the catastrophic bar prices, and excuse me, we weren't the only ones who thought it was really expensive, because as you'll see in a second, there you go. There we are, Hotel de Paris. And it was quite interesting to go in there, but if you wanted lunch, you know, if you wanted like a lunch with a glass of wine, they were doing a deal where you could have lunch with a glass of wine for €100 each. Yeah. I'm not exaggerating, and wait till you get to the end. Here's me at the famous the Fairmont Hairpin, which is, there's been lots of historic little incidents and crashes here, of course, over the years. And there you go. I said I'm wearing this jacket. It is in fact not this jacket. It's the other one that I used to have, which was slightly longer and a slightly different colour. It's a lighter colour. But there you go. That's me at the Fairmont Hairpin. And I'll tell you something. It's quite steep up here as well. You'd be surprised. Monaco's got a lot of gradient. So here is the Fairmont. See me back in. So here is the Fairmont, and again, I say again. This is our room here, this one. That one's our room. And they've got all these adverts for the nightclub, and there's all sorts of other events and shows are on. Do a lot of stuff like that. I mean, you know, this is a pleasure playground for sure, this as a place to go and stay. It's quite impressive. And here we go. So I was talking about the sailing ships, the tall ships. This is ignore the fact the tall ship's got this leaning mast. That's an effect of the camera lens. It's not actually leaning. But it gives you an idea of the view from the top of the hotel. You get all the beautiful ships out in the bay. This is Casino Square. So here is the Hotel de Paris. This is the casino. And then the Café de Paris is just off shot here on the left. And this is how they have cars parked up normally in the evening. And in case any of you are wondering why it has this name, they change it from time to time for tax reasons. Monte Carlo SBM actually stands for Sunbathing Magnet, would you believe? Not magnet as in metal magnet. So the sunbathing company, it's basically the Monte Carlo PLC is one way of thinking about it. Now here is an interesting photograph, because something you probably won't have seen before. This is actually the back of, this is the back of the casino. The steps at the rear of the casino, which you would never normally really get to see. And it's absolutely beautiful. Fantastic building, no question. Here's my good lady wife. This is when we're having the the Bucks Fizz breakfast brunch thing. And we were trying to decide what to do for the day. We decided, we had a great view from here, obviously, of the whole of the Monaco, basically. And we decided that we were going to go up the hill here to the Royal Palace, which is here. This is the Royal Palace, where the Grimaldis, obviously, used to have Prince Rainier and Princess Grace. More on them in a second. Decided to go and have a visit. And here we are at the palace, or here is Mrs.O at the palace. So here we are. This is in the front sort of courtyard of the palace. It's not that huge, I've got to say, but it is beautiful. We went in and had like a mini tour. Yeah, they did have 2 levels of tour. I think one level you had to pre-book, and it was very expensive, and it wasn't available on the day, so we couldn't do that one. But we went around the sort of the tour light, so to speak, and it was very nice, very impressive. You know, so this is where Princess Grace used to live, obviously. And this is the cannon and the cannonballs outside, and the ramparts at the front. This is Mrs.O taken from just the other side of that square now, with the whole of Monaco pretty much behind her. You see the harbour and all the yachts and the marina. Got the grandstand here. Our own hotel is here. Now this is the Cathedral of Monaco. And this, of course, is where Prince Rainier and Princess Grace were married and are now buried. And this is the tomb of Grace Kelly, Princess Grace of Monaco. Grace Patricia. And she was the wife of Prince Rainier, and of course she was sadly killed in that horrible car crash in the Rover car. Some mystery still surrounds it today about the circumstances, but there we are. It's a very beautiful resting place, I have to say. And there's me, same sort of shot as my wife. That's her taking the picture. Me in front of the whole of Monte Carlo. And, you know, I was complaining about the changes they made, and this is where they built that horrible, totally out of place monstrosity, concrete carbuncle, as the King of England would say. Anyway, moving on now here we go. So, because it was the Grand Prix weekend, on the Wednesday night, we had Eddie Jordan show up with David Coulthard and Jake Humphrey, the TV presenter for the BBC. Who I thought was very good at it, actually. I thought he was one of the better TV presenters. Certainly better than Steve Jones that we got today. Anyway, he was a Norwich City fan now, wasn't he? Oh, I'll have to forgive him for that. Anyway, so we didn't actually meet Eddie Jordan as such, but they ran this story, and it was about the actual sort of little intro preamble where they all lark about, a bit like Top Gear, you know. And they went into the Hotel de Paris, and they were looking at different rooms, and Eddie Jordan's looking at the prices. And they went into a room, and you can still go back and look at this, I'm sure you get it on the BBC or wherever, maybe even on YouTube, where they're looking at this room, and Eddie Jordan's saying, "Yeah, but it's a lot of money, you know." Oh. And it was like 2,000 euros a night in this room. And he was saying, "Oh, I hope I get free champagne for that," and all this kind of thing. And they're all joking and laughing. And then they did this little film sequence, and then they came out. And they were driving a Bentley, or rather Coulthard was doing the driving this Bentley. So here you go. So I'll show you the photos that we got. And they weren't actually signing autographs, unfortunately, but they were very friendly with everybody. There's Eddie. Sadly, we lost Eddie last year, didn't we? We were very sad. He was a real character, one of the last great mavericks in Formula 1 for sure. And here you go. It's not the best photograph, obviously. We've got David Coulthard on the left, Jake Humphreys on the right, and Eddie Jordan in the foreground. And here they are. They jumped in the Bentley, and this is parked outside the casino. And Coulthard is just about to drive off, and they're just merging into the traffic, and we get this shot of Eddie Jordan looking straight at us. And this is the funniest part for me, is the funniest part, okay, because Eddie Jordan sat in the back there. There's Jake Humphrey on the right, and obviously David Coulthard behind the wheel on the left. But if we look very, very carefully at what is Eddie Jordan looking at, and he is in fact looking at a price list for the Fairmont. As though he really wants to go to the Fairmont, yeah? Which is where we're staying, yeah? I thought that was really funny. And I didn't realise this until I got home and I was able to blow the picture up. I thought, what was he looking at? I thought, it's a brochure for the Fairmont Hotel where we are. Well, sorry Eddie, but you either got it or you haven't, you know. Good old Eddie. Anyway, this is now on the Friday, so the Grand Prix has begun, or the practice days have begun. And this is the view you get if I stand at the side. If I stand on the ledge, rather dangerously, actually. And my wife was getting quite worried she was about to become a widow after just like a week. Well, it was actually, yeah, it was a week, wasn't it? And basically, I'm hanging on for dear life, taking these photographs, looking down onto the entrance of the tunnel. So this is the very spot where Ayrton Senna had his accident in '88, the famous crash. This is actually Jensen Button, of course. Then we have Felipe Massa taking the hairpin. So I'll just zoom that in a bit for you. There you go, Felipe Massa in the Ferrari. And then next, of course, at this time we had a lot of great champions driving. We had Alonso driving, we had Michael Schumacher was still driving, of course, in 2011. And now I'm going to show you my favourite ever picture. I'm going to show you my favourite picture of Schumacher and my favourite ever picture of Fernando Alonso. Yeah, here we go. Look at this. Whoops. Whoops. I'm having a bit of trouble. So here we go. So this is my favourite ever picture of Fernando Alonso. I always say to people it's my favourite shot of Fernando. Just about to take the hairpin. Look at that. Isn't that nice? That's so cool. Oh yeah, and sorry, the wife as well. And she doesn't find it very amusing when I say this. But there you go. So that's the Grand Prix action is now in full swing. Here we have Jensen Button taking the hairpin. And here we have Michael Schumacher about to enter the tunnel. Exiting the portiere. This again is the spot where Senna crashed famously. And that's Schumacher on his way into the tunnel. Poor old Michael. Yeah, but he should have stuck to cars and not done skiing, you know. Anyway, there we go. Now, a change of pace now, and a change of subject. So those of you that are not interested in motor racing, you can relax now because we're going to get into James Bond and Star Wars. So we then up sticks. Another amusing story. We went on the Friday. We got a taxi out back to Nice Airport, which was kind of boring, but I had a car arranged. I'm going to drive now and turn into a road trip. So basically, gets to Nice Airport where I've booked a C-Class Mercedes, and I've said I absolutely want this Mercedes, nothing less. Yes, we understand, Mr. Oxley, in an email. I don't want any more of this, you know, don't fail me again like the Fairmont did, Admiral. So, and when I turned up, they said, "Oh no, we haven't got any C classes." And I said, "What did I warn you in my email, Frenchie?" And they said, "No, monsieur, no, please do not get upset, sir. Oh, we have something even better." And I said, "Really? I've heard this before." So what did they have? Not a C-Class Mercedes, but a new E-Class Mercedes. An absolute huge saloon. Oh my God. I mean, an ideal sort of transcontinental express sort of car, yeah. But as I found out later, brilliant for getting, you know, on the journey into Italy. So we drove along the coast from Monaco then into Italy and up to the Italian lakes and up to Lake Como. And as soon as I got off the motorway near Como, this is when I realised that this was, I was saying to the wife, "Look at this, I feel like I'm a millionaire, you know." And then you get onto these tiny little lanes and these like sort of valley roads that lead up to near the lake, and you're thinking, "Oh, this car is too big. Oh my God, it's too big that way, it's too big that way. Oh my God." And it was hair raising, I'll tell you. I needed a smart car, and I got like and I'm thinking, is this why they gave it me, just to wind me up? Ah, thwarted again. Anyway, so we stayed at a place called Lozano, which is on the, it's basically on the left bank sorry, the southeastern bank of the left side of Como, because Como splits like it's like an inverted Y. Yeah, it was a really nice place called the Aurora Hotel. Now, it was fairly simple accommodation, almost like a B&B. It wasn't anything fancy like Monaco, but it had the most wonderful trattoria restaurant. Everything was, it was all family owned, and the cooking was absolutely knockout. And I'm not a huge fan of Italian food, but it was the best Italian food there, and another one I'll mention in a second. It's the best Italian food I've ever tasted. Fantastic. Anyway, so we were there. Now, zooming you into this photograph, this is important because this is where they filmed the movies Casino Royale, where Mr. Bond was recovering from his injuries. Oh, well, he'd had a bit of a whacking. Oh, you remember, boys? Oh, I don't even want to go there. And he was in a wheelchair, do you remember? And this is where he was recovering. It's a place called Villa Beno. And it's on the opposite side of Lake Como, and it is very, very beautiful. Now, it's also the same location where they filmed Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, where Anakin Skywalker falls in love with Padme, you know, a bit of a bull, wasn't it, really? Not the best part of Star Wars, let's be honest, because I don't think the acting was very convincing, and nor was the script at this point. But anyway, very good visually, and they fall in love, and he has this affair with her, and then they ultimately get married in the same location right at the end of the film. So it appears twice in the film, in the Star Wars film. I'll go into the locations in more detail in a second. So it's a beautiful place on the west bank of Como, and this spot, it's my wifey. I just got married too, like Anakin. Now, at the end of the film, Attack of the Clones, Anakin and Padme secretly get married at this very spot. This literal spot where my wife is standing. In fact, they actually stand here, where my finger is. And they have C-3PO stands there, and R2 is pretty much where my wife is. And this is where it was filmed, and it's supposed to be Naboo in the actual story. And it's really, really beautiful, and you can understand why they chose that location. And this is pretty much, yeah, this is actually pretty much the centre of the frame as they used it when they were holding hands and getting secretly married right there at that spot. So that's the, if you go and watch the end scene of Attack of the Clones, the last 30 seconds of the film, and you'll see that is the spot exactly there. And our hotel was sort of over here, and we got, this is where it gets interesting, we got across there by a chap who was an English guy, an expat, gave us a lift across, and we'd rented a speedboat. That we'd organised a trip on a speedboat up Lake Como, and he was going to come and pick us up after an hour. So we had an hour there. So let me show you the pictures in more detail, because it's so fantastic. And wonderful, you know, one of those places you think, my God, it's like Eden. It's such a beautiful location. Now, this is important because I was talking about James Bond as well, and this is where there is a crossover where they both filmed at the same spot. So if you look very carefully at this and think about Casino Royale, Mr. Bond has had a bit of a whacking on his family jewels. Oh! And he's in a wheelchair recovering, and Vesper Lind is with him. And this is where Vesper Lind sort of falls in love with him and says he's basically more of a man than anybody else, and blah, 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 blah. And then Mr. Mendel from the bank comes with the funds from the casino win that he had. And if you look at this photograph, he actually, just zoom you in a bit more, he comes running up this path here, Mr. Mendel, and then up here with this suitcase of money. And James Bond has to type in the secret passcode, and then he accesses it and says, yes, here you go, and he gives him the case with all the cash in it, which when they go to Venice, she then makes off with. Anyway, that's later. So Bond is sitting literally where my finger is here. Let's just zoom in a bit. In this wheelchair, right here. And that's where it all happens, the scene happens. And it's taken in this direction, the camera faces this way. Now this building is also, oh sorry, that's me where Anakin and Padme were getting married again. That's just me getting in on the act. With my Grand Prix hat on. Now, this is important because here we have, jumping back to Star Wars, what did I say about, just going back slightly, Anakin and Padme get together and he has a sleeping together. And anyway, it's a nightmare, doesn't he? God, this nightmare thing drives me nuts. Stupid. He has this nightmare and then he gets up to clear his mind and he stands in this archway with his back to you in like an A-frame stance. And she comes up, she becomes aware that he's disturbed and she comes to comfort him. And he's standing in that archway, in that central archway there, with his back to you in the movie. You remember it? And then she said, what's disturbing you? And then he says nothing. And she says, when did we start lying to each other? Because she knows he's got some problems, psychological problems. Anyway, the Force is not good with him. Anyway, there we go. So yes, I should have actually maybe I should have stood there like Anakin did, you know. Now this is the spot, just going back to the James Bond again. So this is the spot, just a close up now. You can see both the archways where Anakin was standing, and here is where Mr. Bond was in his wheelchair there. Which is remarkable that the same location could be used for two films, and they're only 4 years apart. They filmed Attack of the Clones 2001, I think, and then they filmed Casino Royale late 2005. This, where my wife's standing, here we go. So this actually gives you, on the Bond theme, this is the angle of the camera in the Bond film. So Bond is here, Vesper's sort of sitting beside him, he's in his wheelchair here. And then Mr. Mendel comes up and he says to Mr. Mendel was very camp, wasn't he, by the way? And he says, oh, you didn't bring me any chocolates. And he says, because he's a Swiss banker, you know. He says, no, sorry. And he gives this really camp laugh. Anyway, so that's my wife. I don't have to worry about Mr. Mendel. Sadly, I don't get to get the money either, but that's my wife in front of that very spot. And here it is from a different angle, as seen from, and you can see here, if you look very carefully, here's the archways where Anakin was standing, there. That's seen from the water. Now, this is us on the water with it just behind us, as you can see, on the speedboat now. Now we're going, and you can see the arches here at the top. And we're about to blast up Lake Como. And this thing could shift. I mean, this thing did about 25, 30 knots. Really moved, I'll tell you. You had to hang on. But it was a beautiful day, as you can see. And this is the stuff that dreams are made of, this kind of a trip, really. Now, thinking about Casino Royale. You remember how the movie ends? Vesper basically commits suicide, so that she can't be used as a pawn to get Bond to betray his country, etc. And then Bond, very bitter, angry Bond, is left very, very disconsolate, in a rage. And then Mr. White, who is the assassin that was helping Le Chiffre. This is his villa, Mr. White's villa. Check it out. This is a quite remarkable building. I can quite see why they wanted to use this in a Bond movie. So it's this beautiful villa this is a little bit further north, on the west shore of Como. And it has got the most amazing architecture, as you can see, with this pagoda roofs and this pagoda roofed tower. If you remember, in the film, Mr. White's Jaguar pulls up here and he gets out, and then his phone rings, and then he said, "Hello, who is this?" And then Bond shoots him with his MP3, silenced MP3 machine pistol in the knee, gives it to him good. So here you go. Sit back. So here we go. So this is this wonderful villa. A private residence. I mean, it would make a brilliant hotel, but I believe it's a private residence. So it's obviously somebody very, very wealthy indeed owns this one. I mean, look at it. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, you never get to see the indoors. Although they did do it in one of the Bond games, didn't they? I seem to remember going through this villa. So they must have been in it to get an idea of its architecture, I think. Look at that. That's the tower. what a beautiful view it has, you know, and they've got telescopes in there and all sorts. That's it from a different angle, bit more like the angle you see in the movie actually. And this is where Mr. White parks his car here, his Jag. Now, that's where the film ends, of course. So fast forward to the next movie, literally from one scene to the next scene. They literally, if you stitch them together, the two films, that's the end of the first film, and this is the start of the second film. And it starts with this sort of a rhythmic theme, and it's basically photographed from a helicopter. Now this is on Lake Garda, so now this is a few days later. Went to Garda for 3 nights and had a wonderful time there. Another great hotel, Hotel Florida, on the Gardona Riviera. And we had the most wonderful meals, not only in the hotel. They didn't do meals in the evening though. They had the most fantastic breakfast, some of the nicest breakfasts I've ever had in a hotel. And then for the evening meal, there was this little guy, Italian guy, who ran it. And he reminded me of my ex-boss when I used to work at Mactac, a guy called Guido Alvino. He was half Italian. And he reminded me so much of him. And he was telling me all about, there was a book there that I was reading, they had, about the Salo Grand Prix, when they used to have the Gardone Riviera motor race. And Sterling Moss took part in it. Quite impressive, actually, what went on there. Anyway, he recommended this restaurant up in the hills, and I must admit I can't find it now. So it may be that it's gone, because it was basically almost like a private residence on this hilltop. And they had in the garden, they'd put these tables out, and I think what's happened is the family have probably, maybe they're deceased or they moved or something. But it was just something that only, there were no tourists there apart from us. Only locals. Only locals. And it was amazing, the cooking was just wonderful. And they were so friendly. Didn't speak a lot of English, but enough that we could understand each other. It was no problem at all. And it was just some of the most lovely cooking I've ever experienced. My wife loved it. Anyway, back to Bond. So, this is how the sequel, Quantum of Solace, with Daniel Craig, starts. And you get this very haunting music. Remember, we've just got Mr. White, he's just been shot in the knee, and it ends in Casino Royale with Craig saying the name's Bond. James Bond. And that's how the film ends. Cut! Straight to the start of this movie, please! And it goes da 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 da, and it zooms across very much like we're zooming now, until you see this tunnel across the water. Yes, you remember? Of course you do. And you know what's going to happen next. Bond driving his DBS Aston Martin. Or in my case, driving that bloody huge Mercedes bus. Oh, not ideal. It's no Porsche, I'll tell you. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was great. Powerful car and everything. Not cut out for these little roads, though. Anyway, so in Quantum of Solace, Bond is driving through this very tunnel, yeah? And he is being chased by the bad guys who are machine gunning him. This is looking at the other angle, looking from the opposite direction. And, you know, in the movie you see there's a lorry here, and Bond gets struck by this lorry, and it takes takes the door off, and blah 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 blah, and then he cuts off into the quarries, etc. So you can see the direct lineage of this area. I have to say that this location is about 20 miles from the other one, 25 miles maybe. But really fantastic. Here's the car, by the way. I'm going to talk about the the Mercedes. Here it is. So you can see this is not a small motor car, is it? No. Quite the beast, to be honest. Yeah, me proudly standing in front of it, but it's like, wow. Great on the motorways. Not so good on the little back lanes in Italy. Because some of these lanes are really, it's like being in the Lake District. It's challenging, you know. So that was actually taken at the Hotel Florida that I mentioned on the Garda Riviera, which was very nice. Now, Verona. Now then, we cut on to some. Now it's time for a bit of Shakespeare. Yeah, we ended up going to Verona. It was on the way because we're going to Venice for the last couple of days of the honeymoon. So coming to the end. Verona. This is the famous amphitheatre at Verona. It was used recently during the Winter Olympics, wasn't it? At the closing ceremony. I think they had the ceremony here, in its environs anyway. And then, of course, it's also famous for Romeo and Juliet. This is the Romeo and Juliet balcony. Well, of course, it wasn't supposed to be actually modelled on an actual location, but these guys made sure that they had one that answered the description in Romeo and Juliet, the play, and here it is. And it's a huge tourist attraction. You know, you can see at the bottom the number of people that are crowded looking at it. And also, we have a figure here, which we'll come to in a minute. There's a statue of Juliet. There's the balcony. Whoops. There's the balcony. And it's supposed to be very good luck if you can get your hands on Juliet's statue. Now, here we go. The court of Juliet. Juliet Court. It's the official licensed Romeo and Juliet location. Oh, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be a happily married man. I've just got married only 10 days earlier. Oh. What am I doing? What? Oh, it's all gone Pete Tong, hasn't it? So, you know, it looks like I'm committing adultery after 10 days. No, joking apart though. It's supposed to be very good luck, especially for newlyweds. It's supposed to be very good luck if you rub Juliet's boob, basically. And I managed to get this stupid Japanese woman that was in the way out of the way. It was hogging it and being very annoying, to be honest, not very polite at all. And I got my turn with Juliet. So you see, it was quite a good honeymoon, wasn't it? Disgusting. Yes, my wife had a raised eyebrow at this, but as I say, it's supposed to be very good luck. Then it's Venice. Now, another story of being cheated by people that just want to treat everything like a tourist trap. So we basically arrive with the hire car, having driven across to Venice, same day as Juliet. We're in Verona. And we've got an arranged speedboat ride across the lagoon from the airport, because the airport's on the opposite side of the lagoon from Venice. So you can actually go across the water into the city. But this doesn't happen. And when I finally meet up with the guy who's from the company concerned, he said, "No, we're taking you on a minibus." I said, no, I've paid for the speedboat ride. "Yeah, but you can't. It's the Billabani Arts Festival and it's very, very busy." I said, I don't care how busy it is. Same thing again. Everybody that's listening to this, I can promise you, again, and it crystal in black and white. Speedboat ride, VIP, and I put, "This is my honeymoon. This is a very special occasion." And just to make sure that you know, "Oh yes," and they emailed me back, "Yes, of course, Mr. Ross, it won't be a problem." Well, it was a problem. So we never got a proper answer. He was very evasive. This guy spoke English perfectly, but he was very evasive. "Oh no, well, today there's been a problem and it's very busy and da." I said, "Look, I've paid you. I paid them something like £150, two-way speedboat ride into the city." So I said, "No, I've paid you for this. I'm sorry." And we were arguing kind of all the way, and then we went in over there's like the viaduct that you go across to get into Venice, and then he puts you on this boat that we're on now, which is just like a little motorboat. But I was still very cross, and I ended up I won't go on about this, but I ended up claiming this money back. Or I didn't get all of it back. I think I got about 80% of it back in the end. It took me like 9 months to get my money back, and I said, "It was guaranteed. I have it in writing. Here's all the emails to confirm and the confirmation of the booking. I don't care what the excuse is. Either you refund me," and I said to him, "I don't want the money. I want the speedboat ride. It's our wedding, honeymoon." Didn't I say don't fail me again? Bloody Italians. No, it's not the Italians' fault. Some ropey company. I don't want to blame a whole nation, don't worry. It was just opportunist, and it's just like they thought that you'd be okay with it. It's like, no, this is the wrong guy. You need to ring the guy at the Fairmont and find out what you're in for. Anyway, we did get the speedboat ride back to the airport when we returned to go home, but that wasn't the point. This did leave a little bit of a sour taste for no reason. Absolutely ridiculous. Two-way speedboat ride to Venice, return on the day you come home. Idiots. Anyway, sorry. Rant over! Oh, don't mess me about. Don't spend that sort of money. So here I am. If you look very closely, you can see a hint of mild irritation on my face. I've just been screwed over. No way. It's only because I claimed via the credit card company to get money back. Anyway, moving on. Peace is now broken out, and we're at the Rialto Bridge in Venice. And as you can see, it is a very beautiful spot. And of course, lots of films have been made here, like including, well, so many really. Obviously, the Bond film, not at Rialto as much. What was the one with? Wasn't Audrey Hepburn in the film? My wife's the expert in Audrey Hepburn, but it was certainly used in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, as you remember, when they crossed the Rialto Bridge. Here we are. This is my wife in St. Mark's Square. Now, another complaint, another grumble. Rant alert! So, we go to St. Mark's Square, and we actually had a meal in one of the little alleyways. A really nice little trattoria. Very nice. And then we came out here later. As you can see, it's quite late in the evening now. It's about 7:30. And just for a drink, really, and just soak up the atmosphere in St. Mark's Square. Little did I know what a tourist trap this one was. And they say to you, oh yes, but there is a St. Mark's Square surcharge. It's €10 each. What? You are taking the you-know-what, mate. And it's really starting to get on in my craw, this did. Grinding my gears. But as you can see, it's... Venice reminds me of when we went on the Orient Express. Did I ever tell you that I went on the Orient Express? Dinner on the Orient Express? That's another show, another day. Anyway, a bit like the Orient Express, you just feel that they're really, they're really dialing it up to 11 in terms of rip-off status, like we had before. And yeah, they're just taking the mickey, aren't they? It's a tourist trap. Maybe a little bit overrated. Not sure I'd rush back to Venice. Don't let me put you off it. I'm not saying don't go. I have to say, we both really enjoyed it. But it's one of those places that you'd say, well... I mean, we've been to Jersey. Excuse me. And we've been back to Jersey again and again because I enjoyed it so much. I probably wouldn't rush back to Venice. But I would recommend you see it. It's worth seeing. Do not let me put you off it. But it's one of those places you kind of go to once, I think. Anyway, it was very beautiful. It was a lovely evening, as you can see. And we just had a nice dinner and we're out walking. But there's a lot of people pestering you. So there's a lot of begging. There was guys trying to sell my wife a rose and, all this kind of crap they come out with. Just dismiss them. Use the force hold on them. Anyway, moving on. But as you can see, we had a great old time. And this is on the other side, opposite St. Mark's Square. When you got the water taxi to go across onto the other side of the lagoon. Now this is St. Mark's Square again. This is the famous clock. Now, talking about Bond, James Bond, remember? Now, we're after a completely different era here. Moonraker, where Roger Moore is 007 and fights with Hugo Drax's henchman, Chang. Big dust-up with him, smashing each other with these Japanese fighting sticks and all sorts. Ends up throwing him literally through the clock face, if you remember, in the movie. And he ends up throwing him head first out of that clock face, which is glass, and he ends up crashing through it. There it is. There you go. And they did actually, I think they mocked it up at Pinewood. Done it brilliantly, actually, to be honest. If you go look at the movie, it's brilliant. So accurate. And he gets thrown through that clock face. It's the Zodiac, isn't it, rather than a clock in actual fact. But he ends up thrown into a piano and killed Chang. Very, very dead at the hands of 007. Now, fast forward to the Daniel Craig era again, Casino Royale. If you remember, when he realises he's been betrayed by Vesper, he runs out after her, flashing his Amiga watch. Who would do such a thing? Anyway, he runs out into the street to St. Mark's Square, runs into the bank, can't see her, and then he runs back and he just catches, this is the spot where he catches a red dress at the corner of his eye. She's crossing this bridge here, and we found the location. I've got more photographs, I won't bore you with them tonight. And she crosses that bridge and he sees her and then follows her, of course, and leads to the big showdown at the end of the movie, of course, in the building which has the inflation tanks, and he ends up shooting out the inflation tanks and the whole building collapses, and he kills the bad guys, but unfortunately Vesper dies in the process. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. So this is back at the Rialto Bridge on the opposite side. Now we've decided we're going to have a nice dinner here, next to the gondolas. Very nice location. Very expensive restaurants for obvious reasons, because it's location, location, location. And here's the good lady, Mrs. O. She who will be obeyed. My lord. And she's clearly getting into the rosé, as you can see here. Nice. And they always serve it ice cold. It's really nice, to be fair. A really nice, like a strawberry rosé. Oh, lovely, very refreshing. So we're enjoying that, having a lovely dinner. Then all of a sudden, there's a big kerfuffle kicks off, and on the river, on the lagoon, everybody starts pointing. The manager comes over and he taps me on the shoulder and he says, "It's Perez, it's Perez." And I said, "The Formula One driver." And he said, No, senor. He said, no, Perez, the Israeli Prime Minister, retired. Sure enough, if you look closely here, zoom in. This is a boat full of armed Israeli Mossad operatives. Look at them. Talking about armed men, as we were earlier. I've got some real serious hombres here, and I tell you, they're all armed to the teeth. Now, you can't see in the shot, but I actually saw one of them had a machine gun in his hand on the far side. Another one had a Glock pistol, which he was holding down by his side. They were armed to the teeth, these guys. And I'm thinking, what's going on? What is going on here? And you can't really see much. And then the next shot, then you can see much more here. There is Shimon Peres himself, the former Israeli Prime Minister. He's sadly now passed away, of course. Look at that. And these guys were, look at them. Now this, I'm not being funny, I'm not trying to get into politics either, but just look at the sort of focus of this security team. They are literally looking between them in every direction. Not like those Muppets that were regarding President Trump, both at the incident when he was shot in his ear, was it 18 months ago? And forget what politics you're into, it doesn't matter about that. I'm talking about the quality of security here. Crap security, quite frankly. And they had that woman, didn't they, that was really short and she couldn't even shield it. Bloody ridiculous. I don't mind a woman security guard, but have one that's the right height and build, for goodness sake. These guys are tough hombres. Just check them out. You can see that you know, they're not having a pleasant joyride on a boat. They are looking at everybody, looking for threats everywhere. Looking at me. Is that a rifle you're using? Because I'll shoot you dead, hombre. You know what I mean? These guys are really on it. So that was unexpected. And there was a real buzz about it, you know. And everybody seemed to know. This is a few minutes later. Me enjoying having a Churchill moment with my cigar. I'm really letting my hair down here. Well, I've got that on, obviously. I've got my V for Victory sign. And yeah. And then we're going to have a pleasant evening on a gondola. There you go. The real McCoy. This chap, this gondolier, was quite a shy sort of bloke, actually. Really nice guy. Very friendly. Did everything we asked him to do. There we go, that's us on the gondola. This is about 7:30 in the evening, and it gone fairly quiet. It became easy to get a gondola ride then, because most people are having dinner. €100 though. Each. Ouch! Yes, not cheap. Anyway, there we go. So, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Having a great time, as you can see. And then finally, this is on the speedboat we're on as we're leaving now to go back to the airport on the Saturday, and that's the final shot as we're leaving Venice. Going out the final bridge which goes into the main lagoon. I do have some video footage. I didn't want to bore you with that though, but I have some video footage of it speeding across the lagoon near the is it the Monaro Lake, the island, sorry, where they do the Monaro glass. Is it? Brain's gone now. I'm pronouncing it wrong. I know I am. But anyway, We went past there, past the island, and then back to the airport, onto the jetty. Very nice. Which is what it should have been on the way in. Anyway, enough of that. Final shot though, final thing. But just cast your mind back when I talked about the prices in Monte Carlo, okay? I'm going to show you the bar prices. This is a shot now from our party. This is the board I mentioned that I created. We got this is just before all the guests arrived, and I got the board with the Monaco prices on it for you. Check this out. So Perrier water, €20. Small beer, €25. Small glass of wine, €30. A large beer or a large glass of wine, €35. Holy crap, I mean, get a luxury bottle for that here. Oh my lord. Small malt whiskey from €58. Now this is the place, remember, just cast your mind back. This is the one where we were sitting there in Monaco and saying, oh, and I was like going pale, and my wife said, don't, let's just walk out. Let's try and do it in a subtle way. And then the waiter walked back past and said, I'll be with you in just a second, sir. And I waited until he'd gone out of sight, and then we legged it. We just could not sustain this. I think we'd hit the limit. So let's just go back to some of the more shocking ones. Glass of Moet, a glass, €63 for a glass of Moet. A bottle of the cheapest champagne, €168. You couldn't make this up. Just unbelievable. Look at this. Bottle of Bollinger Grand Cru, €380. Magnum of Mum, which is the one that they used to have at the Grand Prix, €680. And finally, Magnum Vintage 1969 champagne. I can't remember what it was. I think maybe Veuve Clicquot. €1,240. And we left thirsty. Very, very thirsty. Anyway, there we go. That's it. I thought you might find it amusing though. Some very interesting sort of locations there from the Bond films and the Star Wars film. Especially the Bond film. They really milked it, didn't they? So that, how many locations was that? It was 1, 2, 3, 4 locations. 4 just that I showed you. Oh, 5 if you include the Moonraker one. Incredible. If I'm honest, I thought that in the Craig era, those first 2 films used Italy a bit too much, to be honest. But very interesting to actually be there on those locations and enjoy the experience. And then we flew home, and we collected our cat from the cattery. And I'm afraid we had a very nervous cat, just like we have now, actually. And she was in a right state. She'd been in this cattery for 2 weeks, and she did not like it. She was in shock, you could see. And she was having nightmares. She jumped on my knee within an hour of coming home, fell asleep, and was having terrible nightmares and flinching. And she was doing it like that for about a week, and it gradually faded away. So it had been very windy here, and the place that she stayed at was there was a lot of things banging around in the wind. You could tell things weren't secure. So I think she was really frightened. I think she had a horrible time, which was a little bit of a downer at the end. But apart from that, I have to say, and she recovered obviously. But it was a fantastic experience, and I say it cost us about £6,000 in the end. But actually, we packed that £6,000. We made it do a lot of work. Do you know what I mean? I definitely wouldn't go back and change that honeymoon for anything. Really, I don't think there's any way you could improve it. Really, it was like being in a load of movies almost. It was really good fun. And you can do the same. You know, you don't have to do the same as me, of course. But you could do the same sort of idea and look at interesting locations and places of interest or places from movies and things like that. To your own tastes, you know, and have a really nice time yourselves, or it doesn't have to be a honeymoon, just a nice holiday, you know. But I do hear people going on these holidays, and I think, on paper it sounds great, but oh yeah, I flew to Australia and I sat on Bondi Beach for 2 weeks. Well, what's the point of that, really? Really? Nothing wrong with Australia or Bondi Beach, but not to, you know, it doesn't matter where the beach is. 2 weeks on the beach, you know, we could have done that in Spain and spent £600 probably, not 6,000. But it seems a bit boring, and we wanted to do something that would be super memorable, which I think we did. Anyway, at this point I should say thank you for watching. I should say thank you to my good lady wife Marina, because she has put up with me for 15 years, which is quite a feat, I think. And now she's had 10 years, 11 years of YouTube. So I say thank you to her for being such a good wife and such a great, bringing so much pleasure and happiness to my life, and hopefully I did the same for her. Thank you all for watching. I hope you thought it was a little bit different, a little bit interesting, and as I say, maybe go back and watch some of those scenes I mentioned from those movies and you'll see the place I was talking about. And until next time, thank you for watching Peter Goes Rogue. Don't forget to catch me on the main channel. I say I've got my gloves on because I'm about to do some reviews, so you'll probably see those reviews before you see this. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I hope to catch up with you in the not too distant future. By the way, before I forget, final point. Something new is coming. I'm going to be doing a monthly, possibly a weekly rant. Now, this is going to be different, okay? Because it's not just going to be me. I'm going to get a friend of mine, Matt. He's going to join me, and we're going to do like a joint podcast. But it's probably going to be a weekly rant. Certainly 2 or 3 times a month, and it'll be on this channel, not the modelling channel. And we're going to have rants about all sorts of things. We're going to talk about potholes and taxes and bad garages and bad service in restaurants and all sorts of things. And there'll be more news on this. I'll tell you more about it in the next couple of weeks. But stay tuned, because Matt is a great guy, and he's also got his own YouTube channel, so he's not shy in front of the camera, and he's quite entertaining. I think you'll find. I think the two of us bouncing off each other will be quite funny. I hope. I certainly think it'll be something different. And he's an expert on cycling. We actually used to work together, so I think it's someone that I've always got on tremendously well with. I'm really looking forward to it. So stay tuned for some amusing new content with some different themes coming in the not too distant future. Till then, thanks very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and till next time, thanks a lot, and bye for now.